Welcome to Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima podcast, where we dive into real conversations that shape our professional and personal lives. I'm your host, Fatima Nash, and today we're exploring a topic that so many of us wrestle with, yet rarely discuss openly: imposter syndrome. Have you ever felt like you're not good enough, like your success is a result of luck, or that you don't truly deserve your accomplishments? You're not alone. Imposter syndrome impacts high achievers, leaders, professionals at all levels, and even the ones who seem to have it all together. In this episode, we'll break down what imposter syndrome is, how it sneaks into our mindset, and most importantly, how you can push back against it. Together, we'll share insights, stories, and actionable strategies to help you embrace your worth and own your success. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and let's get into it. Hello, listeners, and welcome to my podcast, Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima. And today, on my very first episode, I have a wonderful human that is so near and dear to my heart, Coach Washington. Coach Washington and I met, I guess my kid was like a junior in high school.
Yeah.
Right.
He was
He was a junior.
Yep.
And this kid came to his parents and said, "Hey, I think I want to play football in college." And we looked at him like he was crazy because we had not prepared for that. And through my family, I got introduced to you and your family. And you've been supporting us all this time with football recruitment and college recruitment. So I'd love to turn it over to you and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about yourself, and then we'll jump into why we're here discussing imposter syndrome.
Yes. So I appreciate it. I'm Coach Norman Washington. I'm a high school football coach here in Atlanta, Georgia at Gainesville High School. Been coaching for, I guess I'm going into year 10 or year 9, something like that. I want to say 10. Yeah, I'll be going, 9 or 10. It's somewhere around there. I can't really remember. It's starting to all run together. Got into coaching in a unique way. Was coaching a youth football team and kind of got tricked into that. And it's a great story about that. But now I'm now coaching in high school and been doing so well here in the Georgia area for quite some time. And also while coaching helped a lot of kids to get to college and be able to get an opportunity to go play at the next level and also earn a degree. So there's a lot of scholarship money, a lot of just knowledge that I've been able to pass on. And so when I met you all, your family, it was a odd, I wouldn't say odd meeting, but it was just odd how the whole concept, how everything happened. I think it was more so like you guys came down here for Christmas.
So what had happened was
I
came to see my pops. He's in the ATL metro area, and he had chatted with me about this wonderful relationship he had with your dad, and your dad teaching him how to golf, and my dad teaching your dad how to box, and all this old man talk. And you know how old men are. They're just like, "I know somebody that can help you, blah, blah, blah." And my dad is the networking king. I had no doubt that he knew someone, but I didn't know the quality of how he knew them. So sure enough, we're in our pajamas on Christmas break. I think I was on a call because I had an emergency at work. My hair was standing on top of my head, and y'all walked through the door, and I'm like, this has got to be a sign. Y'all must already be family because I ain't got no makeup on. I don't even know how to brush my teeth. Like, come on in, save my kid's life, right? Because as a first generation college student myself, I just assumed that I would just help my son Marcellus through the college process the way that I knew. But football is a whole different beast. And so we were very lucky to join you and your family, and for you guys to be an extension of us as you guided us, held our hands, late night conversations, early morning conversations, 911, mom crying. And so we're really grateful. So it was very fitting when I decided that I wanted to focus a podcast on imposter syndrome, that I start with you. Not because I think that you have imposter syndrome, but I think about the first generation young men that you get to serve on a regular basis and how imposter syndrome is very prevalent for them,
Yeah.
and very prevalent for my football players as well.
Yeah.
So, Coach Norman, from your perspective, how would you define imposter syndrome?
Um, the best way that I explain, and I took some time to just even think about it. It's like that little voice that you have in your head that's telling you that, you're questioning, am I good enough? Do I know what I know?
Mm-hmm,
As a coach, I mean, am I telling this kid or I'm telling this parent the right stuff, the right
mm-hmm,
information? From just from recruiting to me coaching the kid to just advice on when trying to make a selection or whatever
mm-hmm,
college.
mm-hmm,
It's a lot just because there's a lot at stake.
mm-hmm,
A lot of hope, a lot of I remember my nights where I was just kind of like questioning when I was a kid, and
mm-hmm,
like, hey, where am I going to go and what's going to
mm-hmm.
happen? And so it's just that voice, that uncertainty,
Yeah,
that you
yeah,
have in your ear, and it's more so you than it is anybody. You would think it's outside noise, but really it's yourself. So that's
100%.
my perspective of imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down with that. I told you that I needed to book a little bit more time on the front end of our conversation today because
Yeah.
I have severe imposter syndrome and I've never really been in front of a camera recording myself. I am a corporate employee who is downsizing and trying to focus on building my coaching practice for first generation business owners. And this is not normal for me. Sure, I facilitate conversations every day. I'm in front of a computer all day. But when the spotlight is just on me and I'm responsible for keeping the rhythm of a conversation, is my facial expression right? Is my makeup okay? All of those things
Yeah.
play a part and they stress me out and they make me feel like, oh, maybe you don't know what you're doing, you don't have what it takes. But we all know,
Yeah.
like you said, that that's just all crap because you're nervous or it's the first time you've experienced it. So when you think about that fraud feeling, how would you combat it? Like you mentioned earlier that for you, in the early days when you're working with parents and athletes, you have to give yourself the extra push and confirm that you're telling them the right things. I know for me, the confirmation on the outside as the person that was getting your services is my son had 0 offers and then he had 18 offers in 17 months. So I would say, I don't know how the hell you got imposter syndrome because you saved our lives. I'm
uh
not paying for college. So
yeah.
yeah. So how do you check yourself then?
I mean, it's that. It's sometimes I forget how many kids I've been able to help.
Mm-hmm,
The relationship that I've been able to build with college coaches
mm-hmm,
across, and some of my teammates, some guys coached me, and it's guys
mm-hmm,
that you know um, when I'm doing the recruiting thing, I do something that's very unorthodox. I've always been comfortable like getting out of my comfort zone, and so when I
mm-hmm,
say that, I take trips. Like I'll take a random weekend and I'll just go. Like a good guy actually who just came to our school yesterday. He's a coach at University of Southern California now, but he was at Houston, and I took a trip to Houston for one of my best friends was coaching for the Houston Texans at the time, and I was like, man, I'm just gonna come down, just pop out. I see you got the University of Houston there, you got Rice University, Texas A&M not too far away. So I'm like, I'm gonna go. I had a Sam Houston. My coach was at Stephen F. Austin, so I was like, man, you know what? I'm gonna take like 4 days. I'm gonna make a trip out of it. Got a rental car. And I knew my coach, he knew I was coming, but like none of the other coaches knew me. I didn't know him, anything. I just went on Twitter. Hey, coach, I'm going to be here. I'm touching down today at this time. I like to stop by over these days. And then it just turned into they would follow me back, hit me a message. Yeah, coach, come by. And, the coach at Houston ended up turning into a 2-day trip for me because I spent 2 days at that university just because of like, I just reached out and he saw my response, and I was able just to kind of get in there and kind of talk to him and build a relationship. And that 2 day trip turned into me having a kid that I coach end up signing at the University of Houston.
Oh
So
wow.
it's those moments that I have to kind of like always reflect and you
Mm-hmm.
know kind of know. So it's kind of like stating those facts or remembering those facts
Mm-hmm.
about yourself. That's kind of like one way that I kind of
Mm-hmm.
deal with it and just help myself. And anytime I come across a kid, I mean, they're gonna have 10 different people in their ears, and I never try to replace their high school coach. Like that's
Sure,
one
sure.
thing I know, because at the end of the day, he's dealing with him every day. I mean, he's got him in the weight room. He's got him in school. He has him in those hours when he's not with his parents. So I always appreciate that. But I try to advise the athletes in ways like how can I, gain exposure? How can I put myself in the best position to know like, hey, if I want to go play at college, I have to separate myself because there's
Mm-hmm.
a million kids every year that are going to graduate high
Mm-hmm.
school. There's a
Mm-hmm.
million kids that want to play college football, but do you know the numbers? Like I'm always a numbers guy, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing a number like division. Everybody say I want to go Division 1. I like go division anything. Like football is football, but the biggest thing is the education.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always felt like if I can get a kid on a college campus, and he gets exposed to, you know, different people that come from different walks of life, I've done my job. And that's my biggest purpose in life is to impact people. And what way can I impact a young man? How can I impact his family? Not all the kids get full scholarship. They get partials. But they find somewhere where they end up being happy. And then it turns out to be, like myself. I mean, I went to Middle Tennessee State and, you know, they find that happiness and that joy while they're there and they appreciate it. And I
Mm-hmm.
just get pure joy out of that. So
So you're
that
telling me that the way to beat imposter syndrome is to be good to others? Did you,
I
is
mean
that the equation?
you could kind of say that's part of it. Being good to other for me, and I know it's different from everybody else, but it is being good to others. I like seeing the outcome. But then I also just like just knowing that I've learned something new
Mm-hmm.
that I wasn't comfortable learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that is that I
Mm-hmm.
learn it all the time. Um, my backstory is yes, I was a coach, but I was a financial planner for 7 years. A lot of
I
people
did not know that.
probably didn't know that. So right out of college, right after I stopped chasing ball, I became a financial planner, and I learned, you have to network. You have to go to places, chamber of commerce, go into different
Mm-hmm.
settings and meet people. Well,
Mm-hmm.
if you don't know people, most people aren't comfortable just talking to people that are random. But that's why I learned like my life experience from a kid played a big factor. From elementary school, I think I went to like 6 different elementary schools.
My goodness.
Before me going to a middle school, I went to one. Um, that was like I went to one middle school, and I went to a middle school not where my brother went. I went to the opposite middle school because I didn't want to be tied as his
Of
little
course
brother.
you didn't.
But all those years of elementary, I always had to like meet make new friends. So I
Yeah.
learned how to, talk to people. I learned
Mm-hmm.
like it was uncomfortable, but
Mm-hmm.
on the other side of being uncomfortable was like something that was better for me. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then in turn, I found something that I'm passionate about. So I know like me meeting this coach that I may not know, and he may be at, a smaller school, a John Carroll or some D3 school, but in a year or two, he may be at, Walford or maybe at a Ohio State or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because I took the time to meet this person, have a conversation. Now I have a relationship with this person, and who knows what that may turn into for myself. But the biggest thing is for the
For the
people that I try
kids.
to serve.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there's one thing that I learned, and I learned this when I was in Tennessee, was that it was a pastor. He was actually at my college. I think he's still at my college working. I'm not sure. His name is Vincent Windrow. Is at Olive Branch Church in Nashville, Tennessee. He used to say, blessings come through you, not to you. And
Mm-hmm.
when he said that, I
Mm-hmm.
always believed it, and I've always taken that. Like, and I
Mm-hmm.
tell every kid that I help, listen, wherever you decide to go, even Marcel, I told him, like, wherever you decide to go, like, understand you this is a blessing, and it's not a blessing. This blessing came through me, but just know that how you behave in this blessing is going to dictate how long this blessing stays available for the next kid that's in your same
Yes.
shoes. So
Yes. I love that. Yes.
so that's something
Yes.
that I definitely, for myself, that's how I deal with my imposter syndrome.
Yeah. I love that. Oh my God. So when I was a kid, and I think we're probably like, I don't know, like 10 and 15 years apart or
We're
something
like 10.
stupid,
We're
crazy.
right
Oh
at
my
10.
God. We're at 10. Okay. You would
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
You would know.
yeah.
Um, So you remember in the 80s, and still to this day, there's some like crazy emotional triggered commercials with babies in Africa with bugs around them
Yeah,
and,
yeah,
save the world, right?
yeah.
So me, crisscross applesauce in front of the big TV as a kid, like, what's wrong with these kids? Where they parents at? Can't we just send them money? Can't we send them our groceries? Can't we do?
Yeah.
And we didn't have anything to be sending anybody. But in my mind, I always had the feeling of I wanted to save the world. And I still do. And what makes me go more than anything is the kindness piece. I have extreme anxiety. I take medication for my anxiety. I am afraid of speaking in public. And you and I have met on many of a
Mhm.
day, and you would never think that I'm nervous. But I
Yes.
always am very, very nervous. I don't eat, but I didn't eat before this meeting. My
Mm-mm.
hands are still cold, and we've been chatting for over an hour before we even press record.
Yes.
So it is legit, and it doesn't matter what it looks like. Inside, I know that I am deathly afraid for no reason at all. But what keeps me going is I'm extremely kind. And I do to this day, from the time I was 5 and 6 years old watching those commercials, I firmly believe that I will make an impact on this world. And it's through this business that I've acquired, and it's through these conversations that I'm able to do that in a more formulated way, systematic way. And that makes me distracted from that fraud thought, right? It
Yes.
makes me
Yes.
distracted because I'm not doing this for me anyway. I'm doing this to affect change. I'm doing this for our people. I'm doing this for my son. I'm doing this to reach the masses. And so when I change my mindset and don't be as selfish, and I'm a little selfish, I can quiet that voice a little bit. So I can definitely align with you on that and that purpose. So I hope that our audience grab a nugget or two from that dialogue, because if
Yeah.
you focus on the right things, that negative energy will dissipate.
Oh yeah, it definitely does. I mean, it's not something that, a lot of people like to acknowledge. And sometimes I had to when we first said we were going to talk about this topic, I had to like go back and like think, and I had to like, oh, that's what that felt like
Mm-hmm.
feeling that pit in my stomach, or that
Mm.
little sharpness, or a little that emptiness feeling right here in your chest by your heart. Like
Right.
that's what that
What
is.
the
And
shit is that?
I know
Yes.
those. But I just like I always just overcome them. I just, you
Yeah.
know, and you just and it's crazy to think like, man, God was preparing
Mm-hmm.
me for like
Mm-hmm.
moments like this, because
Mm-hmm.
this is how
Mm-hmm.
I would meet people and
Mm-hmm.
deal with
Mm-hmm.
people. So it's,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's unbelievable now that I'm thinking about it and just
Right?
talk.
It's
It's probably
kind
the
of a
first
big
time I ever
deal.
told anybody any of this stuff, really. So,
Oh, now you're telling a whole bunch of people. It's no
yeah,
secret
definitely,
anymore. It's out
yeah, yeah,
now. But
yes,
check it though, for real. When you are transparent with yourself and when you're transparent with people, it also silences the imposter syndrome because you're
mm-hmm.
not giving it value. You're saying, you don't get to be buried in here. This is bullshit. Let's get this out, because
Mm-hmm.
I know the people around me, especially if you have good people around you, your community will remind you that
Oh
don't
yeah,
be nervous about that, right? Like
yeah,
your girl, your pops, anyone that
yeah,
just seen you do great things. So
yeah.
yeah, but it doesn't look imposter syndrome. Even though I know I have it, I publish books, I um produce podcasts, I
Mhm.
travel the world, I do a lot of fun stuff, I have a pretty cool life, but I am still terrified because it is just nerves. And it's the assumption that you don't belong. And in the
Mm.
world that we get to play in, we have a lot of distractions that want to tell us that we don't belong. And some
Yeah.
of that plays a part. I know for me, as a Black woman in technology, a Black woman, period,
Hmm.
I am reminded that there's a place for me, and it's a box that I don't like to live in. And you and I have had, we've been on road trips together, and you know
Yeah.
how out there I can be. And so putting me in a box and telling me I can't do something, I might agree with you on the inside. I'm still gonna try though. I'm still gonna try
Yeah.
to push through, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to have that discipline. So when I also think
Mhm.
about tips and tricks, when you have internal drive and you have aspirations, let that voice drive you.
Mhm.
If you have a purpose, if you have a task, you need to focus on that and not focus on the fraudulent feelings, as I call
Yeah.
them.
Well, and you can actually, you probably could use this. And I just thought about it. It's taking action versus doubt. So,
Mm,
that's something that, and then I just think about what I do, and it's like to overcome those things. Like I just take action, and I don't look at it as if I fail, or somebody doesn't respond to me, somebody says no.
mhm,
Um, a lot of my kids, the young men that I talk to, and I tell them certain things. I always have something where I talk about, being able to talk to young women, things of that nature,
mhm, mhm,
and say like, the worst thing they could tell you is no.
mhm,
I learned that through sales. Like, what's the worst thing
mhm,
someone could tell you is no.
mhm,
And knowing that that no isn't a failure, it's a growth, or it's to the it's going to get you to that next opportunity. Um, so that's kind of like the biggest thing. Like, just take that action, and then you never know what that action is going to lead to,
me too.
or it's going to go ahead and get you past that part, so that you can
Mhm,
get to that yes or whatever that you're dealing with. And then the other thing is just don't compare yourself to what somebody else is doing. Your journey is your journey. Um,
mhm,
it's going to happen in your time, but you have to have certain skills, certain just things that you have to acquire along the way, that is going to make you better, and makes you so unique and different from
mhm.
everyone else, because we're all not the same. So
But yo, like, I have two teenagers. I mean, Marcel's might not want to be still called a teenager because he's a college man and everything, but whatever, he ain't 20 yet.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I got, little Malk, rising freshman in high school. And something that you said triggered my thought for them because uniqueness and authenticity is something that is kind of ignored these days, and people really go to social media and compare themselves.
Oh
So
yeah.
I love to talk about that, especially with the young men that you see. How do you help them combat their fear of missing out, their
Yeah.
imposter syndrome, them second guessing themselves because they're all swiping, seeing what somebody else did at their school and what
Mm-hmm.
kind of reps they got, or I don't know all the football
Mm-hmm.
lingo, so
Yeah,
help
yeah,
me
yeah,
out. But
yeah.
yeah,
um, the biggest thing, and when you said that, I thought about, man, we have this kid here at Gainesville. He's a quarterback. He's a sophomore. He's going to be a junior next year, and he's blowing up right now. But I remember in the spring last year, we had another quarterback here, and he was, you could tell, you could sense it. Like, I've been around there long enough, I can know when a kid's trying to
yeah.
overdo it, or at
Mm-hmm.
times, and just like, hey, just they're kind of out of their game a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I remember just telling him like, hey man, listen, if you just focus on those one small details, like find one thing to get better at
Mm-hmm.
every day, and you just
Mm-hmm.
start stacking days, like your moment, your opportunity is going to come. And in football
Mm-hmm.
and sports, period, you may not be the starter day one, but if you keep stacking days of getting better at the things that you aren't great at, but also still perfecting the things you are great at, then you're able to, when that moment comes and then your team needs you, you're able to step into that moment. And this kid, man, he persevered like that. That spring, he kind of, it was kind of up and down, and then the summer he just started, I mean, he's a hard worker already, but he just kind of just kept getting better, kept getting better, kept getting better. And it got to a point, like, literally, I mean, we was like, man, he's night and day from the spring. And then you just start seeing the confidence just start to grow
Yeah.
more and more. And to be a sophomore starter on a 5A program in Georgia, which is, considerable, really considered, the toughest, one of the toughest states to play football. We were in the
Mm-hmm.
toughest region
Mm-hmm.
in Georgia, but we also had one of the toughest schedules in the country. I mean, we played a top team out of Alabama. We played Carrollton, who had the Juju Lewis, who went to Colorado now. Milton High School, who's in our region, their quarterback went to Miami, and he was standing toe to toe with those guys in those games. And it was just like, had he not just kept focusing on those moments leading up to those games, and the games that we won. I mean, he doesn't have the year that he has, and then it doesn't turn out to be what he's being able to see now. Like, if I keep working at these little things, I keep growing, man. Now scholarship opportunities are coming out because they're saying, "Hey, this kid is doing well." Like, he's picked up the University of Georgia here recently. He has the University of Duke as an offer.
So
He's
awesome.
only a sophomore. He's going to be a junior. It's like, and he has this
So awesome.
workers mentality that
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't get to his head. He has a great personality. You would definitely love him. All the kids love him. Coaches love him. But just seeing how this kid worked and seeing that progress and just knowing, like, I know I wasn't the only one that probably said something, but I know that's what I told him, and just seeing that happen. And it's other kids, I'm sorry.
Mm-mm,
And
you're good.
there's other kids that they're saying, like, man, why aren't I getting these scholarship offers? Why aren't I not getting this? And what
Mm-hmm.
I found is a lot of times it's not more so the kids than it is the parents to not
Mm-hmm.
know, like, hey, your son needs to continue to work and develop.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's not just college is no longer just about the area that you live in. Now it's a national thing. You play a position. What am I doing to separate myself in these for the position I play and where I play at? This kid just he worked, and now he's reaping some of the benefits, but he still has to work because that doesn't guarantee anything. It's a lot before he graduates as a senior, but he's got a little taste, and you know now he's kind of taking that initiative to, like, motivate other guys that's in his class that
Wow.
may not have the offer. Some of them that a class above them that have the offer, like, he's motivating them, like, hey man, like, we got to continue to work. Like, we,
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying, like, it's going to be great if we all, like, buy into this stuff together. That's going to
Mm-hmm.
make us better for the team.
The system.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I mean,
Mm-hmm.
he's been great, and I just think about that kid because I really love that kid. I know I don't tell him that much at all, but
Well, he gonna know
um,
now.
yeah, he's definitely gonna know now. He's gonna know who I'm talking about. But a lot of people gonna know that kid as well in a couple of years. But he's just one. Just thinking about. I mean, I got another kid that who's now at the University of Florida State, and I remember having him in the 8th grade, and I was like, "Hey man, you got something." I told his dad, I said, "Listen, he has something. We just got to develop. Just trust me. Trust what I'm going to do. Believe in the process." And that kid now is the early enrollee. I'm sorry. This kid is the early
Okay.
enrollee at Florida State University. And I still remember, like, he had to go through this growing phase. He had to grow through, he made, bumped his head, made mistakes
Yeah.
along the way. But it's like
Yeah.
they really weren't mistakes. They were growing moments.
They
Like,
were
he had to
grown, right?
grow. So just seeing him and how he worked, he took the same mentality. He worked. He was always working, trying to find ways to get better. And it wasn't just me that imported him, but he had a lot of different people that he went to different trainers, went to different people. But like, the kid has a great work ethic, and it's just like, when kids understand that the work that I put in, that's going to put me in a position to be able to be seen, be noticeable, but also know that, like, where I play at really doesn't matter. It's that I go and play, and that's the biggest thing. So for me, that's where I talk to a lot of young guys about that, and knowing that you see the social media. I see a kid, oh, just got an offer, um, and a parent say, well, why is my son getting it? Wait, hey, well, what year is he? Two, what type of work has he been doing?
Mm-hmm.
Three, like, the film has to have to tell a story too at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, like, because college coaches are gonna look at a film because they're getting paid. Like, this
Mm-hmm.
is their livelihood. They can get fired if
Mm-hmm.
they recruit the
Mm-hmm.
wrong guy.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
understanding that aspect of it, and
Mm-hmm.
then understanding, okay, what am I going to do to put myself to be, marketable, from a standpoint of having the grades, from a standpoint of making sure that, one thing a guy told me when I was in school, he said, listen, the NFL combine is every year. Every year you see what they do in the bench press, you hear what they do as far as in the 40, what they do in the L drill, shuttle. These are drills that like you have a study guide ever since whatever day you decided you wanted to play football.
I love that.
So
That's true.
if you're not like practicing for this study guide, then you're not preparing yourself for, the next level. And just know, like, yes, it's the NFL combine, but those same drills they do for colleges too.
Mm-hmm.
Any college camps, you're going to go do these same
Mm-hmm.
drills.
Mm-hmm.
So now, granted, you have position drills that you have and all that stuff, but like they're also still going to look at you. They want to know how fast the
Mm-hmm.
40 you run. They're going to want to know
Yep.
what are you doing in this shuttle? What are you doing
Mm-hmm.
L drill? How high
Mm-hmm.
are you jumping in your
Mm-hmm.
vert? Like
Mm-hmm.
all this stuff
Mm-hmm.
matters. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to put in work in those things to know like
Mm-hmm.
I have to the measurables have to match up.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, height, and that's something that God gave you. You got to deal with whatever
Right.
God gives you. But the other stuff, as far as working, I mean, that's going to put you in the best position.
So
So,
you're saying that the two big points that I heard, that having trusting that you have the skill set. So if we
yes,
talk about the young man that you were talking about, how each, he climbed almost like a staircase, right? To get to his next goal, get to his next goal. He had pushbacks, but they're not really pushbacks because he was learning. And so you're saying that to remedy imposter syndrome in young athletes is to practice your skill,
yes,
right? Is
yes.
to know your stuff and practice, 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 because that gives you confidence. And
Yep,
then that means the imposter syndrome or the voices, the fraud voices go down a little bit, right?
yeah,
Because you're confident in that you can do this. So your
yeah,
imposter syndrome will say you can't, but you know you can
yeah,
based on your practice, your drills, and your stats. Is
yep. Your
that right?
preparation. Yep, your
Preparation. Okay.
preparation. Your preparation
Okay.
dictates it all.
So what happens if you have if you have the build, if you know that you have the skill, but you still don't trust and the imposter syndrome is still real loud, then what do you do as an athlete?
You have to be, and that's one thing that a lot of guys that when they do have it, they it's like a struggle. It's like a pitcher that's pitching, or they're kind of in their head. It's a psychological um, um warfare that they have going on. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you have to acknowledge those fears.
Mm-hmm.
Write it down, write in a journal, but then
Mm-hmm.
also write down like what do you want to accomplish and what are
Mm-hmm.
you going to do to okay, if this is a fear of mine, then if I'm scared of dropping the ball or whatever, or I'm dropping a certain type of ball on a route, like I need to get out here with the quarterback to throw it, or I need to get someone to throw me a ball and seeing myself catch it, or find drills where I focus on catching. Um, there's always little things that you can do if you just share it. You have someone that your parents love you, so you got to be honest with your parents. Your
Mm-hmm.
coaches, they care about you and they're going to tell you and be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you have to, and it's kind of twofold. One is, and I say this because parents, this is, I don't have children, but I know that being around and helping a lot of kids, a lot of times your child is your most prized possession, and that's something that you love and you want everything to be. But as a young man, and you talk about you playing football or playing sports, at a certain point, you have to know how to have a conversation with your coaches to be able to get the information and know
Advocate for
your
yourself.
dad
Mm-hmm.
and mom can't go in here and talk to this
Mm-hmm.
coach to know
Mm-hmm.
why you maybe not playing or what may be going on. But
Mm-hmm.
the coach is also trying to figure out like maybe why are you struggling.
Mm-hmm.
And these kids today, they're
Mm-hmm.
kind of in tune to their cell phone, so they don't know how to articulate themselves a lot of times or communicate. But the biggest thing is being able to have someone that you can talk to and you trust, whether that
Mm-hmm.
be a trainer, your parent, sibling. I mean, I was fortunate enough to have a brother that was a year older than me. So and then my dad was there, and then, but when I went out to college, I had to learn how to talk for myself. I had to learn how to
Mhm,
talk to my coaches
mhm,
about,
mhm,
what I needed to do to get better
mhm,
and how can I
mhm,
perform and get
mhm.
opportunity. So I definitely think there's a time period, and definitely in high school, where it has to start being more of a shift to where these young boys know how to talk about their feelings and talk
Yeah,
about what they're struggling with. And we grow up in a society where, especially as boys, hey, don't cry, don't share your feelings, be a man, suck it up. But it's okay to have those feelings, have those emotions, but then you have to know where they're coming from and why they're there. But I would share it. I mean, I would write it down in I was a big journaler when
yeah.
I was younger. But you got to find some way to kind of get it out and not
Get
let
it
it
out.
just sit there.
Yeah.
Because at some point it's going to come back up, and it grows. I mean, it doesn't get smaller if you don't address it. It just keeps
Mhm,
growing until
mhm,
something
mhm,
happens to where, like,
mhm.
okay, I no longer worry about that anymore.
Right,
So
right. I mean, we talked about that a little bit at the beginning before we press record, right? About you get a test.
yeah,
And if you don't pass your test, that can get a little harder. The test keeps the rigorousness of the test increases with age, I will tell you. So if you don't learn your lessons, they
yes,
will haunt you at 40 something years old. And they hurt real, I'm telling you,
yeah.
like time out on the field. Them lessons hurt in your 40s way differently than they hurt in your 20s and in your teens.
Yes.
So be transparent. Yo, our culture and how we roll as some of us as black people, we don't think that we should share our insecurities and we shouldn't share certain things for a whole lot of reasons. But what I find is it's about who you share it with. And if you have a strong community, you got to trust in that community because
Mm,
your community can be your mirror. Your community can help you unstick yourself and they see things you don't see. So I've had to really, and you know this, I've had to really be hands
mm,
off as a
yeah.
parent with my baby. And I'm not allowed to say baby. You told me that like 3 years ago,
Yes.
but I just said it just now.
Yeah.
With my student athlete. But by me being a little bit hands off parents, it allowed him to find his own voice because
Yeah.
he's trying to challenge himself through things and you want to be that positive voice, but at a certain point in time they kind of outgrow your voice and they have to listen to their own voice, especially as young men. So that
Yeah.
was a really big lesson for me to learn over the last year or so to let go. um, but I love that transparency, and don't tell everybody your business, but find someone. And
Mhm.
luckily for the Nashes, Marcellus has a nice hefty over stimulated over everything, very pushy support system, but he also has you, right? And
Yeah.
so it's really
Yeah.
nice that you guys have your own relationship outside of our transactional relationship when it comes to the consulting services that you provide the Nashes. But you have your own relationship with Marcellus, but not only with Marcellus's teammates, with Marcellus's roommates, like you know
Yeah.
everybody. And so it's kind of
Yeah.
dope, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I can check out for real, because I know that Marcellus has got a good support system that knows way more about the things than I do. I know business and I know how to get from point A to point B. You have a goal that you want to make, call me. Well, I'll get you there. But I
Yeah.
don't know a damn thing about college recruitment. And that was humbling for us as parents, to come and say, hey, we don't know how to help our own kid. Like that was kind of
Yeah.
tough too.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I remember the first
oh
meeting
shit.
we had, and you created a spreadsheet, and you had everybody's what their role was, what they were doing, and then you had the due date uh, when we had to have it done by that we talked about on the phone. So I still remember that. That was one of my first things where I had a parent actually do that. Now I've had
Yeah.
other parents that we have different things and we schedule out. Okay, we're gonna talk at this point and
Yeah.
trying to give them feed, but it was like, oh yeah, we're definitely having like a project management meeting.
That's
Like
right.
we're,
That's right.
we're gonna
That's
know.
right.
Okay, you said you're gonna do this. Was this done? If it wasn't, what was the delay? And it
Heck
was just
yeah.
it was great. But it
Come on,
also
this is my life
allowed,
here. Yeah.
to learn how to celebrate small wins. So, and that's one thing that I think in that process, it was like it was a small win. Like, hey, we had a conversation. My best friend was a coach
Mhm.
at Georgia State at the time, a
Mhm.
D line coach,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
said, "Hey, listen, I was gonna have you go up here and come talk to this guy." And my
Mhm.
dad took him up there, and he
Mhm.
got to sit down with a college and
Mhm.
hear someone break down his film and what he needed to do.
Yeah.
Kind of gave
Yes.
him a whole different
Leg
perspective,
up. Yep.
to know like, okay, this is what I do well, this is where I'm deficient at,
Mhm.
but this is what's going to help me kind of be
Mhm.
recruited. And
Mhm.
I felt like from that meeting helped him, which also in
Yeah.
turn you all to know like, okay, how do we really need to go about doing this? Where do we need to
Mhm.
spend our time?
Mhm.
Because one thing about college recruit, there's hundreds of colleges all over the place, and you're gonna want to go everywhere, every which place where that you want to go, but
Mhm.
you have to find out like like find out the cost. Like, okay, we're gonna go do this. How can we make this cost fit? Is this
Mhm.
even one? Is this a fit? Like,
Mhm.
son, do they do what offer what you do? Or do you fit
Mhm.
their scheme?
Mhm.
Like, do we need to waste
Mhm.
our time to hey go take a
Mhm.
trip here when
Mhm.
might not be the best
Mhm.
situation? So,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
but I definitely think that small win, like when he got his first offer, I remember that. And then when he kind of started to get the continuous ones, and then it was just like it was excitement. But then it's just
Yeah, it
like you got
was.
to now it's no longer offers. Now he's in college, and okay, like I got to find a small win with trying to earn
Yes.
my way to be able to play in time and
Yes.
what
Yes.
to do.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I think we've come to a point in the era where a lot of people don't celebrate those small wins and
Mhm.
sometimes don't even know how to celebrate them. And I
Yeah.
struggle with that too myself.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, like I've always coached defensive backs since I've been coaching, and then I coached linebackers, and I've been very successful at defensive back. But then I had to transition, even though I played linebacker, is a difference from coaching it than playing it. So now you're looking at it from a different perspective. But then like just seeing like, I had a young linebacker that he was a DB that transitioned to a linebacker. I had an older DB that transitioned to a linebacker last year, and just seeing like the productions that they were able to do and saw them kind of stack days as the season went on, and they were able to kind of be successful and seeing like where he ended his season, and now we're looking at the projection, but it was just I would be worried about, okay, do I have the right drills? Am I telling this right? Am I
Mhm.
explaining this right? Am I
Mhm.
doing this? And then
Mhm.
like we'll go to a game and this kid, I mean, I think the last game he had, I told him before the week, I said, listen, you're gonna have over 10 plus tackles in this game. And then I broke down, and it's kind of crazy. At the beginning of the season, I told him, he told me, hey coach, I want to have 50 tackles. I said, okay, so you want to have 50 tackles. I said, so we play 10 games in a regular season. So 50 tackles, if we kind of looking at this, let's say, that's 5 tackles a game. I said, but you're going to play on special teams, right? He said, yes. And so I said, so you're going to run down on kickoff. You're going to run down on punt. So you don't think you could probably get a tackle there? I said, if our offense kicks off twice or maybe 3 times, our offense puts up a lot of points a lot of the time. So we might kick off 4 or 5 times in a game. So I'm like, so you don't think you can maybe get 2 out of 4 or maybe, 1 out of 3 or like that? And he was like, yeah, I probably can, coach. I said, okay. So now we're talking about maybe at 6, maybe 7. I said, so when you think about tackles, I said, it's not about all just when I'm on the field defensively. There's a other part of the games you're playing in that you can go get a tackle. So now we say, okay, we're at 7, but then we talk about punt. Our offense is going to punt at some point. So who's going to run down and make a tackle? Can you do that? It was like, I was like, yeah, you probably get maybe 1 out of 4, 1 out of 3, something like that. So now we're at 8 to 9 potentially. I said almost 10. So what if you get one extra tackle when you're on defense, get you to 6? Now we at 10. And then it started to see it. He would get close every game. I mean, he was averaging around 7 to 8 tackles. He ended up with like 60 something tackles, almost
It's
70
amazing.
tackles for the season. But it was just like his last game, he was just like, he put it together. Like it took him a little while, but he was just a sophomore, but like just to see his progression, it was just like to celebrate that with him and see him
Mhm.
celebrating and
Mhm.
like wear it as a badge of honor when we had our end of season exit interview that I had with him. I said, you only said 50, but
60 something.
you got 60 something now, like almost 70.
Mhm.
I said, you almost double what you said you wanted at the beginning of the
Mhm.
season. Like
Mhm.
now you have a different perspective. Now, what are you going to do for next year to maybe
Mhm.
have more than that? And so
Mhm.
it's that's a small win to me, and I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's a small win for him just from a confidence standpoint. Like as a sophomore, I did this, and I was still learning, and now I
Mm-hmm.
know a little bit. So
Mm-hmm.
now I'm going to be a little bit better, and that's kind of the
Mm-hmm.
same thing for myself. Like, hey, I got better throughout the year and learned things, and I pride myself in, and I joke with our guys on the coaching staff, and I talk to the kids about it, like, hey man, if I don't know nothing, I don't have any pride in letting someone know I don't
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
asking a question. But once
Yeah.
I know, like, dang, okay, now I understand that's a small victory, and then I can
Mm-hmm.
ask a question and kind of pose it in a different way to the players to make sure they understand, and then
Mm-hmm.
when the product's on the field and they're playing, and they're
Mm-hmm.
being successful, hey,
Mm-hmm.
that's a small win.
Mm-hmm.
Granted,
Absolutely.
small win that adds up to the end score where you have a win in the
A win is
college.
a win.
So it's like, hey, you
A
gotta you
win
gotta
is a win.
celebrate those small wins.
Absolutely. I was thinking, and I'm gonna put my business coach hat on for a second. And what I know I struggled with early on is smelling the roses. And it's an old saying that these student athletes might not understand. And so I want to break it down for them, and break it down for the parents and anyone else listening. I'm putting my coach's hat on, so I'm gonna get a little bossy. The way that you smell your roses is to document your success by beginning with the end in mind. Homeboy
Oh
said he
man.
wanted 50 tackles. So what he did was, what you did for him was, you
Mhm.
build a reverse project plan that we were just talking about.
Yes.
But you did, right? You said,
Yes.
here's the big picture. Here's the equal sign over here. What do we need to do incrementally to get you to that equal sign? And when you focus on, I think you said it earlier, I got some little chicken scratch notes here. When you focus on the action, I think you said that.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
you focus on the action by thinking, starting with the end in mind, you're focusing on your effort and your action and not that nagging voice of, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to make my number. I'm not going to be successful. So, everyone,
Yes.
you can smell your own roses. You don't got to write it down like Fatima and have a spreadsheet and we're calling every week and checking things off. Like, it ain't got to be that crazy. Or you could be that crazy.
Yes.
The point is, organize your thoughts. Think about where you want to be. Don't be
Yeah.
all willy nilly out in the world, just aimlessly trying to get stuff
Yes.
done. Commit here. And
Yeah.
you don't got to tell everybody. You ain't got to post it. You got to put it on Snap, but you commit to yourself that this is where I want to be by X amount of time. And your body will take you there when you
Yeah.
trust yourself. And then that fraud crap goes away. I mean, I'm not going to lie to these people. It's never going away, but
Nah.
it quiets down a little bit because
Yes.
you're focusing
Yes.
on your action, right?
Yep. Yep.
Oh my gosh. All right. So, what other tips and tricks as we come to a close on my first episode?
um, and I think this is something that a lot of kids, and it took me a while to kind of figure out, like knowing their purpose, knowing
Mm,
why they are doing it, knowing, um, what, um, I guess just knowing like why do they play the sport, why do they want to go play in college, like what is it about this game that brings, like for me, it was joy. Like I played football. I loved it. I mean, I still love it. I love seeing the young guys play. And it took me a while to kind of figure out my purpose as an adult. And I thought about like just the impact. I had a great teammate of mine. Oh man, I know it's over 10 years since he's passed. Probably a little bit longer than that. But I remember him passing, and like he was over the Boys and Girls Club in his hometown in Virginia. Um, and so like he was a coach, and he was the one that told me, yeah, man, go ahead and go out there and coach youth football. So like that was the kind of deal, and he died doing that first season I coached, but it was just like um, I saw what his purpose was, and then I kind of started learning like, you know, why am I coaching? Why do I help kids? Why have I've been helping kids get into college even when I was in college. Like, why do I do this? What
That's
do I
right.
get from this?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was just, I want to live an impact. I want to live a legacy. I
Mm-hmm.
think of Martin Luther
Mm-hmm.
King. I think of
Mm-hmm.
Muhammad Ali. I think of
Mm-hmm.
like even Kobe Bryant, and
Mm-hmm.
just knowing the effect that I've left on somebody's life.
Mhm.
And knowing that, I always tell any kid that I'm obligated because I had men in my life when I was young that wasn't my dad, that coached me, that taught me, that gave me game, that gave me wisdom, and helped me through
Mhm.
my struggles. And
Mhm.
so it's like
Mhm.
I don't want to just keep this information to myself.
Mhm.
I want to give it to someone and hopefully they use it. And I always say, hey, you're 15, 16, 17 years old. I was already that once. I want to see what you look like now when you're 35 and you're
Mhm.
married, you have a kid, and you have a
Mhm.
family, and what
Mhm.
type of positive impact you have
Mhm.
on your
Mhm.
community. Because at the end of
Mhm.
the day, like, we all are a community. It doesn't matter color, it's people. So when you
Yes,
have people
humanity.
that like humanity, like how am I affecting this community? How am I
Mhm.
positively helping it grow and advance
Mhm.
to,
Mhm.
whatever the next stage or event?
Yes,
And so, um, for me, that's like knowing that purpose, knowing why you're doing it, and then also knowing that, in order for me to reap what I want, I know that, hey, there's going to be some sacrifice. There's going to be some things I have to give up and not do. But am I willing to do that? If this is what I really want to do.
absolutely.
Um, and so
Absolutely.
that's kind of like that. That's the last little tip and trick that I
Yeah.
have for dealing with imposter syndrome.
Yeah. Well, way to take us home. My thought on that is, and I just had, I want to share this because it just hit me and it's a little personal. But when I, in my younger years, thought that I knew better, I would take shortcuts and then have imposter syndrome, thinking that I wasn't able to do the thing, but I didn't put in the work. So I
Yes.
let my imposter syndrome win.
Yes.
And that hit while you were talking, it was just like a smack in my face, like a true aha moment, like no BS. Because I would beat myself up in my teens and 20s thinking I was supposed to be doing and better than I am, but I wasn't putting in the work. I wasn't putting in the actual effort of myself and focusing on myself. And I was listening to all other things and being distracted. So for those out there, whether you're an athlete, you are a first generation business owner, um, if your imposter syndrome is speaking to you loudly, run your checklist. Did you do all the things that you could have done and should have done? Because maybe
Yeah.
that's not imposter syndrome. Maybe that's your internal project management voice checking you, right? Because
Yeah.
it could be that you hadn't exhausted all of your steps or exhausted the process or the system, or you didn't listen to your coach or whatever. So
Hmm.
yeah. Oh my goodness. This was so great. Thank you very much for being a part of my pilot debut.
Oh yes.
Again, Fatima Nash, first generation business owner with imposter syndrome, focusing on helping other first generation business owners excel. You can catch this on the socials. It will be airing in February on YouTube. So I thank everyone for joining. Please tune into my channel to hear more tips and tricks on imposter syndrome and how to execute with excellence. So I thank you all for listening. And Coach,
Yes.
thank you so much. Will you come back? Can we do some more stuff together?
Nah, we definitely can. We definitely can. I like this. Obviously, I have my own podcast as well. So,
That's right.
it's kicking with Coach, and it's kicking it. One, it's something that as a coach, and just people just want to learn more about coaches, but then also just a lot of stuff that I do. I touch a lot of different areas. I like you just found out I was a financial planner, so
Yeah.
it's a lot of different things that I've been able to touch and being able to do. But um, I definitely want to use that platform just to be able to,
Yeah.
share the knowledge
Yeah.
that I have, and
Where can
also
folks see you? Yeah. Where can they come find you?
they can definitely
Nicole.
find it. Obviously, Twitter, kicking it with Coach, YouTube. We have a couple episodes that I'm thinking about trying to release in February, if not top of March. So we're going to try to
Black
shoot.
History Month.
Yeah, yeah, definitely try to get that done. Also in the process of finishing a recruiting book. This is something that I started, but now this is landscape has changed. A lot of things are going on. A lot of people trying to figure out,
Hmm.
and just something that maybe can help. create like a starter kit to just kind of putting yourself in the right direction.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of kids out here, a lot of people, and a lot of times they don't know what they don't know, and then they don't know where to go
To
or
go.
what to
Yes.
do. So
Yes.
that's something
Yes.
that, through our recruiting service, AGR, which athletes get recruited. Um, but it'll be be my first book, so that would be kind of cool. I've always said I wanted to write a
Yeah.
book. So that's something. And then obviously, on my socials on Twitter, Coach Norman _AGR. I post some stuff. I post a lot of stuff. So you'll see me celebrate my kids I've coached, kids that don't even play for my school that I've coached or know personally,
Mhm.
because I want all these kids to win and have opportunities to go
Mhm.
play college ball. Um, but yeah, that's where you can definitely find me. And
Awesome.
we're gonna definitely continue to share, and I'll look forward to something else, to be a
Yeah.
part of with your
For
podcast. I think.
sure. Yeah. We got something going here. I mean, there's definitely things that we can do to come together for me to coach you. Imagine me coaching
Mhm.
you on something.
Yeah.
But also getting together for the kids, right? Like that soft skill stuff that you talked about, we can absolutely figure out how I can support that. Like for
Yeah.
real. Like my one of the offices at the corporation that I work for is in Atlanta, and I'm there on a regular basis. So I'd be
Hmm.
happy to come and spend some time with you guys. All
Oh yeah.
right, guys, you've heard it. Fraudulent Feelings with Coach Norman. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in and listening to my pilot episode of Fraudulent Feelings with Fatima, a podcast dedicated to unveiling those deep emotional fake feelings that stunt us in many ways. On this episode, I had the pleasure of hanging out with Coach Norman, where he talked to us about imposter syndrome on the field and how it shows up, how to debunk it, how to focus on being practical, practicing, and being positive. I really hope you guys took some good nuggets from this episode. Please tune in to episode 2, where we will chat with HR business partner Caroline to walk us through how imposter syndrome shows up in business and stunts our growth and our promotions, y'all. Tune in for more. Thank you so much. See you soon.